What was that? I'm going to go mic myself, that's okay. Give me a shout if you can't hear me back. So when I was 4 years old, I was cast in what would be the most significant role I'd ever hold in my short-lived acting career. I was given the part of Joseph in my nursery nativity. And I was too young to remember, but my parents tell me, as the children came out one by one to take their place on the stage, when it came to my turn, I stepped onto the stage, looked up and across at a sea of adults staring back at me, took a deep breath, and turned around and walked off again. And I think it's fair to say that even from a young age, I've never been a fan of the spotlight, and today, standing in front of an audience petrifies me, but I'm certainly not alone. Glossophobia is a fear of public speaking, and unsurprisingly, it affects about 75% of us. In fact, a recent UK poll asking people what they feared most put public speaking in the number 2 spot, second only to the fear of losing a family member. Interestingly, people are more afraid of public speaking than the fear of being buried alive, which definitely shouldn't be a fear, by the way. And in 4th place is just plain old dying. So, in fact, if you look at the fears in the number 2 and 4 spot, and as the comedian Jerry Seinfeld once said, most people attending a funeral would rather be dead in the casket than have to present the eulogy, which is pretty peak. But there is hope for all us glossophobes, and in my effort to get better at public speaking, I found this great book by Edie Lush and Charlotte McDougall called How to Speak with Confidence in Public. And it's a really short read with a bunch of practical advice. And there's way more in this book than I can summarize in a very quick presentation. But I wanted to share a handful of things that I think are particularly valuable that I've learned from this book. So I'm going to share 2 pieces of advice across the following 3 topics. Preparation and what you can do as a speaker before you present to increase your confidence. Content and what to put in your presentation to make it more memorable. And finally, delivery and techniques that you can use to engage the audience. So first up, preparation and what you can do as a speaker beforehand to increase your confidence. I want to introduce you to 2 hormones that exist in your body. First up, say hi to testosterone. Testosterone is a hormone that when it's released into your bloodstream makes you feel assertive, confident, and competitive. And meet testosterone's arch nemesis, cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone that makes you feel stressed, anxious, and fearful. And as a public speaker, you want to maximize the amount of testosterone in your body and minimize the amount of cortisol, thereby giving you all the benefits of confidence and assertiveness. And Amy Cuddy, a psychologist, did an experiment, in fact studied the impact of body posture on our biology, and she found that you can actually change the balance of these 2 hormones in your body just by changing the way you hold yourself. So introducing power poses. Holding power poses, so making yourself as big as you can, increases the testosterone and decreases the cortisol in your body. And as a presenter, you can use this technique in 2 ways. That's right, that's great. First up, just before a presentation, and I know this sounds super weird, but go to the bathroom, lock yourself in the cubicle, and pull a power pose. It's going to give you like a last-minute boost of testosterone before you go and present. And second, during a presentation, continue to hold yourself broad. It's going to help keep the testosterone levels up throughout. It's a picture of my friend Zach putting what I think is the optimum power pose. So the second thing you can do to increase your confidence, and it's a pretty obvious one, is to rehearse. Now, if you're not confident, like me, it's really important that you know the content of your presentation well enough that you can afford to look away from your slides, look up from your notes, and make eye contact with people in the audience. Something I'm going to talk about more in a moment. The more well-rehearsed you are, the more confident and relaxed you'll be. So please don't try and wing it. Okay, so you perform some power poses, so you've got the testosterone rushing through the bloodstream, and you're well-rehearsed, so you're confident and relaxed in delivering your presentation. Let's talk about how you can make the content of your presentation more memorable. A study from Ohio State University into recall capabilities experiments with 2 types of presentations. A presentation consisting of just words, and a second presentation consisting of the same words but with accompanying images. And what they did was they presented each, and then they measured the recall capabilities, so the amount of the content of the presentation the audience could remember after 3 days. And what they found was, after 3 days, the audience that had seen the presentation consisting of just words could remember about 10% of the content. But the audience that had seen the presentation with those same words but with images could remember 65% of the content they'd seen. So use visuals in your presentation. It's going to drastically increase the recall rate. And interestingly, the study found that not only do you drastically increase the recall rate of the audience, but actually they like you more. So a quote from the study said, "The audience perceived the presenter of the visual presentation in a significantly more positive light than those who had seen the text presentation." So images make for a happier audience. As well as being visual, your content should tell a story. Make it personal. When I introduced Glossophobia, I could have started with a dictionary definition, but instead I told you an embarrassing story from my childhood. And hopefully that illustrated my point, but made it a bit more memorable at the same time. And Charlotte and Edie, the authors of the book, suggest using characters, emotions, and visuals in the presentation to create a more engaged and attentive audience and a more memorable talk. And the thing is, you can tell a story with anything. So we've probably got a bunch of developers in the room. Next time you're presenting a feature or application you built to a team, use the names of the people that built this thing with you and tell anecdotes about the hurdles you faced building it and how you overcame them. Anything that makes the message more memorable. Finally, I want to talk about tips for delivering a presentation. Olivier Houllier is a professor of brain and behavioral sciences, and he performed a study where he asked people to face each other, close their eyes, and do movements. Then asked them, I'm going to regret doing that. He then asked them to do the same thing with their eyes open. And what he found was, with their eyes closed, their movements remained unique. When they had their eyes open, they began to mimic and replicate the behaviors of the other person. And he calls this phenomena spontaneous interpersonal synchronization. We're going to stick with mirroring, but what it means is we tend to replicate the behaviors of those around us. So if you smile, someone smiles back at you. And if you yawn, someone yawns back at you. And as a speaker, you can use this to your advantage. So in the same way that if I speak with a dull, monotone voice, energy levels in the room drop. If I speak with energy and passion, then you as an audience hopefully mirror me, and I can keep you attentive and engaged throughout. Next up, pause. Pausing during a presentation gives you as a speaker time to think. It also gives you gravitas, but most importantly, it gives the listener time to ingest what you're saying. Charlotte and Edie recommend pausing 3 times more often than feels comfortable, and for 3 times longer than feels comfortable. This one is really tough, because when you're in front of an audience, pausing for a second feels like a lifetime, but it definitely comes with practice. Okay, so I know I covered a lot there, but to quickly summarize, use power poses to increase your testosterone. Rehearse to reduce your nerves in order to have increased confidence public speaking. Use visuals to increase the recall rate of your audience, and tell a story to capture their imagination in order to create more memorable presentations. Use mirroring to increase the audience energy levels, and pause to give them time to ingest what you're saying to create a more engaged audience. And remember, we all have something worth sharing. So if you haven't presented before, but you'd like to, give it a go. Thank you.